Sally. Welcome to her Empire Builder show.
Thanks for having me, Tina.
Oh, I love these stories. Member stories are my favorite interviews to do because I learn things as well in terms of just looking at your sheet and everything that you've achieved. I'm going, gosh, you're so quiet about all of it. Some people would do, you know, run a webinar and they're like, oh my God, I did it. Like we did this and this is how it went. You very just quietly under the radar kicking ass.
Thank you. Oh, I guess you're just so busy in the thick of it that you have to take the time to stop and reflect and realize how far you've actually come. So,
We're going to take that time now.
okay. Good.
So you launched last year for the first time.
Mhm.
What was the first online program that you launched?
So I've so the first program I launched was Regulation Rituals, which is an online short course for early education professionals to support their knowledge of implementing social emotional practices for children in early education and care environments. So it was really specific market and clients that I'm working with. And I guess the whole point of launching that particular course was to take the work I was doing in centre. So I was working in early childhood services and I was away from home quite considerably. And I was also noticing so many themes across the nation of services I was working with that I thought from a cost-effective perspective for the early childhood services and from a time perspective for me, I could bundle this up into an online course. So then when I was able to be face-to-face, I could be in there coaching and mentoring and actually, doing the work because the educators had the opportunity to do the learning prior to me getting there.
Yeah. And so how long had you been running traditional business for before you did the switch over?
Well, I started traditional business, I think it 2011.
Yeah.
Um, but
Wow.
then in 2016, so I had a private practice. So I'm an occupational therapist, was working in a really traditional manner in private practice. And so had a private practice in that time, had two sites. When I had that private practice, one in Brisbane, one in Sunshine Coast. And then in 2016, I started working for a national organisation that provided early education and care. And it was
At
my
the same
absolute,
time as running two sites.
yeah. So I had that, but then I was offered this position. So I was doing some contracting work with the organisation and had some really big ideas with their team. And, I was looking at ways to contract or like how we could work together. And then the opportunity came up to become like a national lead in the national manager of occupational therapy for the organisation. And that
Amazing.
was like my dream role, right? That was sort of my whole purpose to my private practice and what I was doing. Anyway, so yeah, so I took that role. So I had a break from private practice and having a business for 7 years. And in that time, I had my daughter as well, and had my son. And yeah, and then I moved back into business just a couple of years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the main motivation for you going into online, I know, had a lot to do with family. How
Yeah.
has it worked and how do you work time-wise now? Because we have so many people that have traditional businesses and then go into online, but then also so many people that have young families and go, I'm so limited with time and there's so much to do. How do you manage that load?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something you've got to reassess daily,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
weekly with the changes. But that was like, for me, I always knew I wanted to make a big impact in this space. And I'm really, really passionate about bringing like these practices, implementing like occupational therapy practices in early childhood environments to make the greatest difference. And I found that even when I had a full-time role, managing a national role and children and relationships and a home. Like it was just so much. And I was always thinking like there has to be a better way. And I was reflecting on, my previous experience in business and having staff and having multiple sites and things. And I was like, well, that's definitely not the better way. Like, because I was
Mhm.
more of a slave to my business,
Amen to that. Yes.
yeah, than I ever was before, right? And my happiness levels skyrocketed actually when I started working for someone else again in
Mm.
that role.
Yeah.
But it kind of came to a point in my life where I was like, that's, that's not something I can maintain and provide the level of support I know I want to provide to my family. And so that's then when I was like, well, how can we make it work? And to be honest, I actually started really following you in this space at that time and really opening my eyes to, hey, actually, how can I package up what I'm already doing in a way that's going to still have this impact and make a difference. And so I guess I just got really clear on the times I have available. So I tend to have about 20 hours a week that I can spend on this work.
Yeah.
At the moment, I am still like in the phase of I provide face-to-face services, like I was just speaking about,
Yeah.
and I provide courses online, um, and it's just a constant sort of balance of making sure I'm just moving the biggest rocks, as you would say, like the biggest, the things that are going to make the biggest difference to my business, and yeah, moving them
Yeah.
first.
I
Yeah.
do think it makes I was having this conversation with my sons actually who are kind of man children now. But I was saying like I wish I still kept the productivity that I kept when they were little people, because there was so much like I would never work, like I pretty much worked when they slept, when they did daytime sleeps. And then when they went to school, like I'd work from 9:30 till 3. So I was always there.
Yeah.
And it limited so much that there was no faffing about on anything. There was no doing any low level tasks. That was like, there's no procrastination. You've got to get in, you've got to do your thing because you've got other stuff that you've got to get to afterwards. And sometimes now I can find myself just taking it so easy, knowing there's no hurry for it.
Yes.
Like there's no deadline,
Yeah.
that there is advantages in there as well.
Yeah, no, there absolutely is. And when you know that how critical, like the one really important thing to me is living in integrity. So like I teach these practices about, showing up for children and being socially and emotionally available for children. And like I couldn't teach those practices. And it's what I used to find really, really hard trying to teach those
Mm.
practices when I actually wasn't doing that myself because I just didn't have the bandwidth or the availability. So like for me, 100%, that's what getting into this space
Mm.
has been about. It's been about how can I actually show up for the moments that really matter for my children and not have to sacrifice that by teaching others how to show up for theirs.
Yeah,
Like
that's it. How
how do
old are
I
your
live
children
in
now?
integrity? I have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
so
So
Kindy,
I will ask you this question because it's a question that a lot of mums ask me, and a little bit I feel like I'm a little bit too far removed now that I sometimes forget what it was actually like to be in there. And I do remember this was quite a thing when I had small children, in going, and it's your kind of specialty in there as well, in how do you stay present so that when you're working, you can be all in on work and not feeling guilty that you're not with your kids and not doing different things. And then vice versa, when you're with your kids, but you're running through your list of, I want to work on this, like I've got this idea and I want to do that, but you want to stay fully present with them. What advice do you have for other mums with little people?
one piece of advice is that is really hard.
Yeah, it is.
Like just to
Yeah.
acknowledge that is not an easy thing to do. And the moment you think, you've got that down, all of the to-do list like creeps back in. But I think my mantra at this year has had to be like relentlessly saying no, like to everything, everything, and to be able to actually shut down all the noise. We need to get really, really clear on our values and why we're doing what we're doing. So, like for me at this moment and this season in life, it's absolutely, yes, to make an impact through my courses and to implement, like have educators be implementing these practices. But on a personal level, it's so I can fully show up for my children. And that means being relentless in my pursuit of no, and being clear on that. So if I am with my children, there are things that I need to do. As an example, I need to make sure my device is nowhere near me. Like when I am with my children, I am with my children to the best of my ability. And then when I'm not with them, it's being very clear as well to them and explaining to them from a very young age, like why I do what I do and where I'm going and why that's important in the world, and why it's important for our family as well, to try and help them also understand that I'm not choosing to be away from them, like because this is more important than them. This is actually, for us as a family. This is for our family, and I hope for one day they will feel that same way about something as well.
I love that. And
Yeah.
the assurance I can give to mums that are listening to this at the moment is, so my kids are 15 and 16 now, and they've come for the last 2 years to all of our conferences. And so they've been raised, I had a business before I had children, so they've been raised with me operating a business, and I have always like ebbed and flowed the different seasons of the business to match where they were at in life.
Yes.
But they've always been part of those conversations. They've always been part of decisions, and I've always explained to them what I was doing. And now, like, it was so beautiful at the last conference that we were at to see them at the back of the room looking at me with so much pride. And like so often, they're walking around and they're talking to members and they're shaking their hands, and I said to them after, like, that was really beautiful that you were so there and so involved. And they're like, well, this is our business, like this is what gives us our life. And I was like, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. And I was like, I did it.
We've made
Like,
it. We've
they
made
get
it.
it. They get
Yes.
it. I
Really?
think that it's really important. Like I talk to some people that really separate their business massively from their family. And one thing that was probably the best thing we did when our kids were little is we had Sunday family meeting where we went over the week, and all the big decisions I would talk about as a family, and they'd feel like they would weigh in on it, and when I was traveling and when I'm not, and everything that we're doing. So it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that because you're teaching them all of those skills from such a young
Yeah.
age. Like
Yeah.
they're ahead.
Yeah.
Like I don't think, yeah, I'm one of those people too. I can't separate the two. I've never actually been able to. Like it's not like work and then life.
Yeah.
My
They're together.
it's a work
Yeah,
life.
especially when we're lucky enough to get to do something we love as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in the last 18 months, you have 3 times your business, which is
Yeah. Yeah.
incredible.
Yes.
Um, is there different things or different advice that you can give to people that has made the biggest difference? Is it a combination of a lot of different areas, or are there things that stand out for you that have made a really pivotal change?
One is literally I have to reevaluate my life on a daily basis of, am I actually working on the right things right now, given the such limited time available to do that. And I am not willing to sacrifice any more of that time. Like, when you pre-kids, I remember like thinking, oh, if I don't get that done, I'll just do it later. But I don't have that later
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah, yeah,
Um, so, it's like what gets done gets done. So I need to be working on the right thing. And the other thing really that happened for me is like late last year, my dad unexpectedly had a really massive stroke, and we ended up in Brisbane at the hospital in the acute stroke ward for a good 3-week period. And in that period, that was like when I was making a big transition in my business around, servicing a lot of private clients at the same time as working with early education and care services. And it was in that moment that I actually just decided and made that real decision that actually my zone of genius, my purpose is and what I'm really good at and can make the greatest impact to be available for the times like this, to sit by his side for
Yeah.
that 3 weeks, to be then available for my children, was through the online course platforms. So
Yeah.
it was, for me, that's when it all changed. Like, I hadn't seen that growth until that
Mhm.
moment, right? Which is funny because I actually didn't work at all for those 3 weeks. But when I got back, I had to like refer all my clients onto other people. I had to close down that stream really of my business and then just go all in on this online platform.
Yeah.
And that is where suddenly I just had the momentum, and I had
Mm.
services contacting me and wanting to get on board and engage in services, and then that sort of just flowed on from there. So I know, yeah. So I think sometimes it requires that moment to really realize, like, you do have to go all in on yourself, like not sort of playing around in all the different buckets. So that.
And what in terms of marketing do you think has made the biggest difference from you going from that local focus to a more broad?
Um, so marketing, yeah. So like I have been really active on like Instagram and which feeds then into my Facebook. So I do try and show a lot on that platform. I have been working with others, like on being guests on their podcasts, or being in their, uh, presenting webinars and things like that in their own platforms. And then, like, I have put a lot of effort into building my networks through my like
So a
mailing
lot
list
of connection marketing.
connection. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's awesome. What do you think has been the biggest challenge moving into the online? What's been the hardest part?
Well, what has been the hardest part and continues to be the hardest
Yeah.
part is you don't know who you are talking to. So, like, I'm so used to presenting face to face and really being able to connect with
Yeah.
those people and adapt to the audience who is in front of me. Whereas I find that, yeah, on the online space, I actually don't know
Yep.
who's coming on, and it's really terrifying to be.
It's why I like presenting live the most.
Yes,
Is I like seeing people and adapting and doing that. There's often, like, especially if I'm doing solo podcast episodes, that I will forget that there's thousands of people listening to it. And then I finish and I go, yeah, I got like a little bit personal there. Like, it's a weird
yes,
setup. Yeah, it is.
yeah.
It is challenging when you're used to servicing people one-on-one and face-to-face, and moving into that is very strange at first.
And I also think social media, and I have to not get myself into that trap, but like the content people are putting out on social media is absolutely amazing.
Mm,
But and it's often, especially in my industry, it's absolute best practice.
mm.
So people are putting out strategies and practices that, if you're working at 100% on your A game, you're going to be able to implement that with a child.
Yeah.
But on your normal day, that's really, really difficult,
Yeah.
right? And so there's this, I constantly get trapped in this, I guess, disconnect between, yes, this is best practice over here, but like in reality, what we
I mean,
do,
that's a great thing for you to talk about, though.
yeah,
Yeah.
online, yeah,
Yeah. And be
because it's,
going,
it's,
let's be honest, we're not all perfect all of the time. I mean, it's
yeah,
the same in business, there's
right,
there's all the things we should be doing every week, but rarely does life flow like that. Like,
yes.
you've got to do the important things, and that's exactly what you're doing as well.
Yeah. But it becomes so daunting, right? Like that's what I mean. Like, you see that and it actually puts you into a place of freeze because that feels so far from where you are. And I know that to be true for so many people that I work with. Like, they see these best practices and are like, oh my gosh, how do I do that when I'm
It's
only,
unattainable.
it's unattainable. And so, yeah, I think finding that sweet spot in social media in particular, ensuring that you continue to be relatable, and your true authentic self, but actually provide value, right? Has been, like a dance.
And what does your ascension model look like now? You've got your regulation rituals program. Are you
Yes.
just promoting that? Is there anything else that you've got on there?
Yeah, so that's what I have at the moment. I have a couple of mini offers that are now available on there as well. So like visual routines, schedules, and there's also an inclusion masterclass. Like they're just really small offers. They're like $7.
Yeah, perfect.
And then I am in the process, which will be complete by end of this week, of just having a
So by
few.
the time this episode comes
Oh
out,
yes, by the
yeah.
time this episode, a few like highly requested topics that I typically present on in evening workshops.
Yeah, nice.
I am turning them into like mini course masterclasses. So, and they will be more just like at $297, really affordable for early childhood services to be able to just dip into, or individuals to dip into. But my signature course is the regulation rituals course.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
And do you have at the moment in your mind, or does it change all the time? What does success look like for you in your online business?
Yeah, so I think success would be like currently I am still away from home presenting workshops and things like that frequently, like especially terms 2 and terms 3. There's a huge, need for that. But I have been experiencing so much success with the services that I've worked with when they are like picking up the online content, and then I'm coming and using the funding and resources like in the day coaching and mentoring on the floor. So
Yeah.
for me, like from a personal level and also from a professional outcome level, I would like to be able to see that those evening workshops are turned into like accessed online, where there's more uptake of that, because more people know about me and know about the content and get a lot of value out of that. So it would look like more like I'm just away on outreach like once 1 week a term versus as much as what I am now. So that's
Amazing.
kind of what success looks like to me.
Headed there, coming in hot.
Yes.
Okay, my final question for you is, what has being part of her empire builder done for you? What do you like about it?
Oh, I love that. So I do travel quite a lot. And so I love that there is like every single thing you can imagine that you would ever need to create an online course, market an online course, brand yourself, write a book, all the things on an app that plugs into my Bluetooth, and away I go. So I
You
know
listen to it in the car.
I listen to it in the car, yeah. And even the technical one, like
Yeah,
technical episodes, I listen in the car because that's the way my brain works better anyway. Like if I read a book, I read the book, but I also listen to the audio book.
yeah.
And so I'll listen to it. And then once I've stopped, I'll go back and I'll like screenshot the
Grab
bit,
those. Yeah.
yeah, that I need to then sit at the computer and work through, or whatever it might be. But yeah, so I've been able to devour quite a lot of, so I feel like I know you very, very well. You've been able to devour so much of the content, and I see like such huge value in being able to do that because it covers everything. So before, I guess I was just pulling like buying little mini courses from different types of people,
Yeah.
or I was listening to a whole bunch of different podcasts, but it was just confusing me because everyone has a different way of doing things. But this, yeah, I'm able to pull everything from the same lens,
Yeah.
point. Um, and yeah, and just chip my way. Like yeah, there
So
is.
how do you go with your timing that you have? Do you have set amount of time that you do implementation of new ideas each week, or how do you work that into your schedule?
That's more strategic than I am currently. No, I just implementation, like I use a Monday
Grab
board.
what you need when you need it.
Yeah, I just grab yeah, and so I'll just search what I need when I need it. So I wrote out like the initial model that I would like to work to from my business, and then I've just had to sort of pick one thing, and then I'll just chip away when I can at it, then the next thing, and chip away as I can at it. But like I've learned how to build my whole website and do all my social media. Like everything I have done. Like everything I have done. So yeah.
You
So
must be
it's
so proud. You built
yeah,
it all.
I do feel proud.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can have this
Considering how
and
I'm
that.
pardon?
Have this and that, have it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love
But
that.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
such an inspiration. It's an inspiration to people that are wanting to go into online from the traditional business, but also mums that are wanting to go. We want to be able to do work. I mean, for me, it was always the same. It's I want to be able to do work that I feel proud of, that I feel like I'm contributing to the world in a positive way, but I'm also like there for my kids every day and there for my family, and they know that they're my number one. And it has, it's paid off massively on both parts. And I think I always get really sad when I hear people talk about that one thing needs to be sacrificed for the other.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
I do think that you need to make choices, and I love
You
that
do.
you talk
Yep.
about that, because there is sacrifices in terms of, I grew my business at a much slower pace than what I
Yes.
could have if I went all in. Even the last couple of years, because my kids are getting close to moving out of home, I took my foot off the accelerator and planned to for another couple of years, because I'm like, this is it. This is my
Yes.
last chance. Like, I want to
Right.
soak it up. And there's plenty of time to go set the world on fire later, but we can still do stuff that we love in between.
But I love that the online course space, like from your business as an example, I can be listening to content that you may have recorded like
Yeah,
3 years ago or 2 years
I
ago, like
know.
that maybe is not so relevant in your life anymore, but it's totally relevant in mine. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
and like that's just like a gift that keeps on giving. And that's what I think even with my work, it's like I I can actually impact so many more people through this, because they can have me on my best day, right?
Yeah,
Every time they listen to it,
yeah,
that's me on my best day.
yeah.
Versus, and then that allows me to actually have quality of life throughout the rest of my life.
I
Yeah.
love that. Well, Sally, I am cheering you on.
Thank you.
Congratulations for 3xing the business in 18 months. See if we keep it going. Because it's the best of both worlds. And I'm so lucky that I get to work with awesome humans like you, and that we have access to this type of business model. It's just
Yeah.
the greatest revelation ever. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tina.